Welcome back to some new r/PettyRevenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now, let's start with the first story. It's called Cosmic Justice. I moved to a new country, and for a while was on a temporary visa. This meant I couldn't work in my usual profession as a sysadmin, even though I had considerable experience managing a popular package widely used by corporations. So I took on IT help desk first-line support roles to fill the time. In one of these roles, I quickly developed a reputation among my peers for being skilled with that particular package. So I started getting all the related tickets. That was fine. I could typically resolve the issues much faster than others. And if a fix required backend adjustments, I'd pinpoint the issue and pass it on to the local sysadmin to resolve. Win-win, right? Not exactly. The local sysadmin wasn't a fan of collaboration. He treated the IT environment like his personal kingdom and wasn't open to suggestions, especially from me. Whenever I suggested a fix, he would outright avoid implementing it. Instead, he'd apply unrelated changes that never addressed the actual problem. This meant the users would come back to me days later, still facing the same issues. Frustrated but undeterred, I adjusted my approach. Rather than directly giving him the fix, I'd subtly steer him toward the solution, presenting it in a way that made it seem like he had discovered it himself. If it helped the users, I didn't mind letting him feel like he'd won. Eventually, my contract ended, my proper visa came through, and I moved on to a better role in my field. I didn't think about him again, until one fateful day. My new manager asked me to help interview a candidate for a role on our team. I walked into the room, and there he was. He shook my manager's hand, then turned to me. The moment of recognition was almost tangible. His shoulders visibly slumped as he realized who I was. I said nothing about our past, maintaining a cheerful demeanor and asking lots of questions, especially about his teamwork and people skills. He answered them all, and I remained genuinely fascinated, at least outwardly. Unfortunately for him, I told my manager after the interview about my prior experience working with him and how he had treated others. Needless to say, he didn't get the job. What made it so satisfying was that both of us knew during the interview that he wasn't getting hired, but he still had to sit through the whole process. A little moment of cosmic justice, if you ask me. The next story is called Downstairs Neighbor. Upstairs neighbors often get a bad reputation for being noisy. But let me tell you about my downstairs neighbor. She has truly been a challenge. When I first moved in, I was warned about her, but I underestimated just how sensitive she would be. If I was assembling furniture after 5 PM, which, let's face it, is when most people get home from work, she'd bang her broom on the ceiling, my floor. If I walked across my bedroom at night, she'd do the same. She even complained to the building manager, saying, "It sounds like he drops things at night." The most extreme example was on July 4th, at midnight. I stepped on a creaky floorboard while walking to bed, and she immediately started banging her broom again. Frustrated, I stomped back, which led to her sending her husband upstairs to yell at me for 3 whole minutes. She seemed to be highly sensitive to even the smallest noises, and, unfortunately, wasn't very polite in how she handled it. But here's the silver lining. I'm moving out in just a few hours. Since it's currently 3:30 AM, I've been cleaning and vacuuming all night to get ready. Around midnight, she came upstairs to yell at me again. But luckily I was taking out the trash when she arrived. Before she could say much, I politely shushed her and told her we could talk in the morning. Here's the thing. I forgot to mention that I'd be gone by then. I'm sure she's been lying awake, ready to vent her frustrations. But by the time she realizes I've moved out, I'll be long gone. Honestly, I hope her next upstairs neighbor isn't as quiet as I was. I've rarely had guests and kept to myself for the 2 years I lived here. Finding someone quieter than me will probably be a tall order. The third story is called Long Calls. Part of my job involves calling a specific company several times a week to confirm they have the correct information on files for our members. Usually, these calls are pretty straightforward and take about 5 to 10 minutes. A few months ago, I ended up speaking with someone named James. Let's just say James had a way of making things unnecessarily complicated. Every time I gave him a member's ID number and name, he'd pause, sigh, and then correct the pronunciation, even when it wasn't actually incorrect. For example, if I said William Smith, he pronounced it Smithy, with an extra emphasis on the E. Same with Bain Jonestown. He'd insist on pronouncing the final E. Not only that, but whenever I explained what needed updating, he'd rephrase it in a way that was technically the same, but took up more time. It felt like he was deliberately dragging the process out. What should have been a quick 10-minute call ended up taking 35 minutes. By the end, I was so frustrated that I had to walk away from my desk just to cool off. Fast forward to this morning. I called the company again and, lucky me, ended up with James once more. This time I decided to approach things differently. I politely made him repeat things a few times to make sure I had it right. Then I gave him incorrect ID numbers, followed by an "Oops, my mistake, here's the correct one." When he asked me to check something, I pretended I needed to look it up on my computer, even though the information was on a notepad right in front of me. If he typed something into his system, I'd apologize and ask to update it again. You could hear the frustration in his voice, but I remained as polite and sweet as possible. At the end of the call, when he asked if there was anything else I needed, I cheerfully said, "No, James, you were so much more helpful this time than the last time we spoke." Then I hung up. The call was absolutely longer than it needed to be, and it was completely worth it. The last story is called Yard Waste. About a month ago, my neighbor had their giant spruce trees trimmed. A few days later, I took my garbage out and noticed something surprising. A 6-foot tall pile of branches and brush stacked up against my back fence. The pile went from the ground to the top of my 6-foot fence and bulged all the way to the road. Huge branches and tons of pine needles. I texted my neighbor to ask about her disposal plans, and she said she wanted to move it gradually. I let her know that wasn't okay, and that I wanted it gone as soon as possible. Fast forward 2 weeks, and the pile was still there. I sent another text, this time being a bit more direct. I told her that my property wasn't free storage for her brush, and reminded her that she also had a habit of using a section against my house to store random items. We've been having unseasonably warm weather here in Canada, until today, when it dropped to minus 20 degrees Celsius. At lunchtime I came home, saw the pile still sitting there, now covered in snow and potentially housing mice, and decided enough was enough. I grabbed my gloves and moved the entire pile onto her small parking pad, where she keeps her garbage bins. Hopefully she gets rid of it before it snows and freezes even more. Now I'm just waiting for the inevitable texts. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.